Hi and welcome to Synths and Sounds. When I started getting addicted to vintage gear a year ago, I was looking for all different kinds of things, not just synthesizers, but also peripheral gear, everything around synthesizers to use in music production. In some cases, like for the MMT8, I really use it every time I go to the studio. It's a great addition, even though it's 30 years old. In some other cases, like with my tape delay, it makes beautiful sounds, but it sounds pretty lo-fi at the same time, and it has lost some of its quality over the 40 years since it has been built. So this week I got another piece of vintage gear, which is the Alesis Midiverb 3. It's a 16-bit simultaneous multi-effects processor, built probably around 1990. So, is it good? Can we still use it in today's music production, or is maybe modern gear better in comparison? And, well, should you buy one of these Alesis Midiverbs? Let's find out in today's video. Let's first have a brief look at the history of reverb effects and see what developments did lead up to the Midiverb. Artificial reverb was first used in early radio broadcasts. Very dry acoustics were wanted for news broadcasts or announcements. But for uses in radio plays, a more spacey sound was wanted. For this, studios introduced echo chambers, rooms that were used to create a reverb. Having a full room dedicated to create reverb was surely a huge effort, so when technology advanced, the goal was to make reverb effects more affordable and more mobile. The next step in this direction was the plate reverb, where a metal plate was set to vibrate by a transducer. The reverb-like vibrations were then picked up again by a contact microphone. Still, those effect generators were anything but small. The answer for smaller reverbs was the spring reverb. It works in a similar way as the plate reverb, using a spring instead of a plate. The spring reverb was so compact that it was used, for example, in the Hammond organ. Still, this wasn't the perfect solution. The springs create a metal-like reverb and are very sensitive to any external tremor, creating unwanted distortion sounds. As digital technology was introduced to music industry during the 80s, it was obvious to use the new invention for the creation of reverbs as well. But this was a hard task. Acoustically speaking, reverb consists out of many acoustic reflections at different speeds. To recreate this, you would have to stack different delays at different delay times. This was quite a task for a 1980s computing engine. Being a producer of integrated circuits already, Alesis brought out its first digital reverb effect, the Midiverb, in 1986. While it wasn't the first digital reverb, it was small, lightweight, and cost less than $1,000 at the beginning. It was quite a success and quickly went through modernization. The Midiverb 3 was introduced in 1990 for around $500. It did not only feature fixed presets as its predecessors, it was the first Midiverb to offer control to many parameters and storage space for 100 user-defined programs. Needless to say, this wasn't the last step in evolution. Having more and more computing abilities, today's digital reverbs are very advanced processors using complex algorithms, including physical modeling. So let's have a look at all the different effects that the Midiverb offers to us. There is reverb, delay, chorus, and an equalizer. which you can all configure in different configurations, which means that you can route through the single effects in different orders. There's quite a lot of room for different settings, so you have the possibility of using all the effects at the same time, but to show the functions I will look at them one by one without using them all together at once. For the reverb you get different algorithms to select out of, as well as a possibility to set the length of the decay. Whenever I start using reverbs, I always try to look for the long ambientish reverbs, which we all love for atmospheric sounds. So let's see how well it performs for that. You can immediately hear one of the biggest issues of the Midiverb. In my opinion, the reverb just doesn't sound very natural. It works well on shorter settings for shorter reverbs, but if you set the long reverb lengths, you can hear a lot of repeats. So it sounds kind of delay-ish, which is not something you want to go for when listening to reverbs. If you compare it to modern reverbs, it just doesn't sound natural at all. Listen to the repeats that are in the reverb. Next, let's have a listen to the delay. The delay has another issue. You can set it to a maximum length of 490 milliseconds, but you only get this if you are not using reverb. If you are using reverb and delay at the same time, the delay length is limited to 100 milliseconds, which is quite a quick delay and which is not very usable for musical purposes, in my opinion. So you can use it as a pre-delay for the reverb in some configurations, which is nice, and you can use it as a standalone effect. So let's have a listen to it as a standalone delay. So you can hear that the delay sounds very clean. In my opinion, it might sound even a little bit too clean. I really like a little bit more of a crunchy delay. You can add an EQ before the delay to get a little bit more of high end or low end out of the delay, but all in all it sounds pretty dry. In comparison though with the chorus, you might get some nice things out of it. It's just not a very special delay where you can get a lot of different delay sounds out of, since you don't have any settings for the delay type. Next, let's have a look at the chorus. You get different settings for mono and stereo chorus, as well as mono and stereo flanger. So there's quite a lot of variety with different intensity settings as well as an adjustable speed on the chorus, and in my opinion it sounds really nice. Let's have a listen. So one more time I figured out another way how to use it, how it's not supposed to be used, but still unsupposed ways of using gear can be very creative and very inspirational. As in this case, what I've done is I did set the input level to a very hot setting. So the input level comes in very loud, it's starting to clip very quickly, and what you get with it is a very reverb-ish distortion actually. So you can use this distortion quite nicely. I think you can add a lot of drive or overdrive to the sound, and it makes for some nice effects. So for this one I selected again my favorite reverb algorithm. I added a slight amount of chorus and you get a quite exciting sound. Time for a conclusion. What do we do with this? Well, as we found out, it doesn't work out very nicely for long reverbs. You surely will find some shorter reverbs that are very well usable. As well, you might use the chorus and delay section, but the reverbs for the typical reverb sounds do not work very well. You can really hear that digital technology was not so far advanced in 1990 when this came out. It was just not so much computing capacity. In today's Hall of Fame, for example, you get a much better computing engine that is able to create much more natural sounds. So for 1990 this must have been pretty amazing, but for today it isn't too amazing. I was a little bit disappointed in the first moment when I got it. I was expecting a bit more of it, but this still doesn't answer the question if you should buy it. because however I was not that excited about it, it's always in the way as you use it, especially when setting the input level to a high level, getting that overdrive out of it sounds pretty nice. And as well, I can imagine that I'm gonna use the chorus and the delay in several occasions in the future. Should you buy it or not? Yes, you should, because you won't believe it, I paid €35 for this. When it came out, it costed £420. So comparing to its original price, it's ridiculously cheap today. And I didn't even have to look for it. I just placed a small advertisement online looking for cheap old delays, and this basically came to me for €35. So for that price, should you get one? Yes. But should you get one if you look for a very good reverb? Probably not. I hope I could again inspire you to maybe use your gear not in the way you are supposed to use it, but if you use it in a creative way, you can get interesting sounds out of the cheapest gear, and having this gear, which is basically as old as mine, still is amazing. I hope you liked this video. If you have any questions on the Midiverb 3, I will be very happy to answer them in the comments, so leave your comments, leave a like if you liked the video, and don't forget to subscribe for more synths and sounds.